prioritizing self-care in your life. And I almost feels like, to me, part of your self-care is sharing this message. But talk to me about that journey for you.
Okay, so my son, Zach, died in 2006 of an overdose. And I think of course, you're in shock, you're whatever. You're just out of your mind. You're just on the adrenaline. We had to go up to Boston, Massachusetts. He was in Mass General from New York, Long Island. And it was it was a 5.5 hour trip that took about 3.5 hours because I just wanted to get up there because he was still alive. But he was transferred from a smaller hospital in the suburbs to Mass General, which is, really big hospital.
Yeah, it's huge.
And we got there and they said, it's not looking good. And I said, well, what do we do? He said, not much you can do, but we'll give it another 12, 18 hours. Got up during the day and about noon. And they said, come back tomorrow and we'll talk. And by then, I mean, I knew it was not going to be a good outcome because what the doctor told us, because his organs started shutting down and he was on life support. And so I knew. So we stayed over. We went back home. I had to tell my family, my daughter. Well, actually, she came up. She took a train, or whatever, a plane up there. And then, I don't know, it was like, 8 days. In my religion, you sit for 8 days and supposedly mourn. And then after that, it was like my wife and I just flipped a switch and I went back to teaching. After 8 days, she went back. She was a professor at that point. And she went back. And I was like, okay. It was kind of weird the first few days. People tiptoed around. I think I was the dean of students then. So I had my own office. So I kind of like stayed in there a lot. But I had to come out and, I had to teach also, which I did. I had 2 periods or 3 periods. And I said, my wife had been going to a psychologist, my daughter too. This is before. I don't know my daughter, but my wife definitely.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't need a psychologist, right? A month later, I saw my doctor, and I'm still seeing him. So he knows me like more than almost anybody else.
Yeah.
That is not a friend or family.
Sure.
And I didn't think about doing anything like this at all. I just think getting back into what I did with teaching and coaching athletics, that's what we did. And, after a few years, we kind of got into a rhythm of life. We actually went away on a vacation a few times. When it first happened, I wasn't going anywhere, but, you have to adjust.
Yeah.
And then I didn't think about, as I said, I didn't think about doing anything like this until I decided about 2013 to 7 years later. I want to know how I was doing in terms of grieving.
Yeah.
And the only place to find out is go see other people who are grieving. So there happened to be a GRASP group, which is called Grief Recovery After Substance Passing. They're all over the nation.
Okay.
There happened to be one close by, 20 minutes away. I said, you know what? I'm going to contact them. And I went. And there were people like me who lost someone mainly to opioids. And I'm there, and I find out I'm like the veteran. Because everybody had their loss recently. The leader, Debbie, who was a wonderful person, unbelievable. What a strength in this woman. she had lost her son in 2013, and it took her a couple of years to start this group. Mm-hmm. So, it was 2011, whatever. And I sat and listened. I told them, everyone tells their story, tells to bring a picture of your loved one. Mm. And I told mine, new people came, and Debbie opened her home during the summer to have like an informal meeting, just to have a barbecue and things like that. So she knew how to do this. And she had such wonderful tools mm-hmm. that she shared with us, and she still does. She's still doing this.
Oh, wow. And
so as I sat there, I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm not that so bad off because, in my process. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were stories and people wouldn't want to get out of bed. For months. These stories were like, okay, I guess I'm doing okay. Mm-hmm. And then the advocacy started about maybe a year later, 2014 or so. I woke up in the middle of the night and I said, I'm going to make a movie about Zach. Why this came out, I love movies to begin with. Mm-hmm. And so I had that, for some reason I wanted to do this. Mm-hmm. So I went to Adelphi University, which is nearby our home, and I took some courses, met some wonderful professors mm-hmm. and wonderful students who were a lot younger than I was and still are. And Charlotte was one of those.
Yeah.
Another young man was Anthony, who was my editor mainly. Mm. And as I was doing this, I before I started like concrete plans for this, I said, I can't do this just making a movie about Zach after being with these people. Mm. So I said, let me see if I can ask them some questions in an interview. Mm. So I figured this way I can put Zach's stories in there, Zach's story, mm-hmm. and all these other people who are suffering just as I am, and my family. Yeah. So that's what I did. So I interviewed them in their home, and they were just receptive. Everyone was receptive whom I asked that wanted to do it. Mm. I had tons of video and we started to figure out, all right, how do we do this? And my editor was great. He's really good. He's doing very well now. Mm-hmm. He's also a good storyteller. Mm. So I had all the information, but he kind of like rounded it out and tell a story. So that came out, and that was called Voices from the Opioid Crisis .com, which is where most of my advocacy is tethered to.
Okay. And this will be on our resources page too, on our website.
Yeah. And on there, you will see the website and the stories, and there are tabs for different parts of it. Mm. And then I said, okay, this is good.
Yeah.
And then one of the professors said, you know what you can do now? This is about 2018, 19. Okay. You should have a podcast. Mm. Okay. So they know more than I do about this stuff. I had when I was growing up, I had a phone with a rotary dial, and
me too.
and the post office.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know. It's fun. How has it changed?
Oh, yeah. And I'm surprised I'm able to do what I do.
Yeah. But you're a learner. You're a learner.
Yes, that's true. So where was I?
So podcasts, 2018.
Right. So I did the podcast, started to see what was involved. I got the equipment. And by 20... Maybe they told me this a little after 2020 or so, or 2019 is when I actually thought that I could do this. Mm-hmm. So we got it together, And it came about when COVID came out, but it didn't hamper the podcast. Plus, I had people from your state, people from all over.
Yeah.
And many of them had contributed to the website and their story. Mm. And I started to change what my purvey was. I wanted to get people who were in recovery and people, some professionals that dealt with that, because I wanted to see what was going on in the field.
Sure. So
I actually was going to do that, but then in fact, my friend who I lost said to me in 2017, "Why don't you just go to schools and talk about it?" I said, "No, they said I should do this and that, and so he was right. He always was. He's a psychiatrist too. But
okay. So he had that way of knowing too. That's probably was helpful.
So here I am now, 2024. Actually, I started going to some schools last year. Okay. I had three, I'll call them gigs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I needed to really, get more, I guess I could say, get more exposure in the area. I'm in the New York metropolitan area.
Yeah. So
I had a plan to have this mass emailing and this and that. And then someone mentioned, my wife and I are retired now. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was alone out there podcasting. It was weird. It was like, because I am not a person who has lived alone in terms of alone of my world.
Sure.
I was with kids all the time.
Yeah.
And when I retired from teaching, I kept coaching.
Okay.
So I need that. So I'm saying, well, I should do this.
Yeah.
But, it takes a village. So what I plan to do, I started this in September. I now am a 501c3 tax exempt New York State organization, corporation.
Okay.
So this way, and I asked my psychologist, I said, "Doc, I feel funny asking people for money. I'm not poor, but, it wasn't even that. It was like just having people with me in a sense.
Yeah, building that community.
Building and helping me to get this out. I feel better about it than just say, I'll just put my own money in, we're doing okay financially, but I wanted that sense of community.
Yeah.
And nobody gets paid, just the people like my editors, the kids, and it's a good thing for them.
Absolutely.
This way, I could give them a bit of a salary, not a salary, but the gig workers, they don't. And so I just had to do a little bookkeeping. I passed all the tests with the IRS and everything, so everything's cool. And I plan very soon to have a very big emailing, and then Charlotte will be doing some work for me on the social media aspect of this.
Yeah.
I'm also registered with a Nassau County BOCES. They have a program of speakers.
Oh, good.
They call them artists.
Yes.
They're a big category. Yeah. So they passed me. Everybody passed me through, so I must be doing something right. And here we are now.
Wow.
So that's the story.
Well, and you are sticking to it, and you have stick-to-itiveness to it, and it's a way for you to take this information and be like, okay, and be a difference maker, and know that your story, you can take something from something horrible and be like, okay, here's some information that can help you not have to go down the road I went down, or my son went down. This doesn't have to be this way, but in order to change these things, we got to have these conversations, share these resources, get it out there to the people who need it. the toll that this has taken on your physical health as you've dealt with the grief of all this through the years. Talk to me about that emotional, physical health connection.
Sure. So, like I said, even my shrink says, your emotions come out physically in your physicality.
Yeah.
And, and I've been reading about a lot of these things. I've been talking to him through the years. And, some people feel their emotions where they're supposed to be felt, up here. I mean, I do too.
Yes.
But I also feel it in my body.
Yeah.
And I believe, like, even though you feel it in your body, your brain is telling you to feel it in your body.
Yeah.
And I've learned that the brain is the master. It is. It's the master, like all those little cartoons. What was the Disney with the
balloons of comments? Yep.
And the movie with the control center in the brain.
Yeah.
The angry guy, Louis Black, who I loved, he played him, and I just have to get that in there. Yeah. So when I grieved, I didn't have all these. Well, also I'm getting older, so I didn't have all these physical problems.
Sure.
And being an English teacher, I kind of like say, well, your pain is really not a pain there. It's in your brain, right? Like the Scarlet Letter.
Yeah.
Esther Prynne. She wore it here, but it wasn't coming from there. It was coming from her head. So, and that's I have a lot of irony involved in my life.
Yeah.
My son died, was officially dead on March 15th, the Ides of March, when Caesar died, supposedly according to Shakespeare.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of ironic. I mean, all these things that I think about.
Sure.
Things like that. But as far as, the physical health, the mental health, I think, even though this tragedy happened, I guess I'm using it to, some people say I'm honoring Zach's memory. They tell me, that's why you're doing it. And I say, yeah, okay. But I still don't know why. I mean, the main thing is, I don't want more people to die, number one.
Right.
And maybe there's no number two.
Right. That's a powerful reason. Absolutely. I mean,
in my religion, there's a saying, Tikkun Olam, which means heal the world. And I always remembered that when I was not a heathen. And still, your upbringing, your traditions, which, I guess I'm a traditional Jew.
Okay.
And, my wife has said there's no God. And that's her. I don't argue with her. That's how she feels. And we mourn, everyone mourns their own way.
Sure.
And I've learned about that through the years.
Yeah.
And there's no wrong way to mourn.
Yeah.
So everyone has to find their way.
Yeah. And
you need tools. You need a toolkit. This is what my group leader always said. You need a toolkit. I think I found my toolkit. I don't see me doing this till I die.
Sure.
But now it's really important because at least there's more action by state governments, the U.S. government, but there's still so much that should be changed in the laws.
Yeah.
Because the reason why I'm doing this, like I said, so no one else will die. And I feel whatever it takes to keep someone alive, someone who is ill with SUD, and any part of SUD, alcohol, opioids, speed, cocaine, keep them alive, and maybe we'll catch up in how to fix this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, people say, let's not go there. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's not go
That's
there.
a whole other rabbit hole.
Right. And I don't care what people say. I'll tell them my opinion.
Yeah.
They can do what they want with it. But I think I'm experienced to have an opinion.
Yeah.
People
absolutely
who have gone through this, I don't know if they have an opinion.
Yeah.
They don't
or they don't, or they have the space to have one that's going to be helpful. I think that can be a tricky thing too, in terms of getting action taken and getting changes made that need to be made, getting resources into the right hands. And that's why it's so important for you to speak up. But I love how you're just so authentic with your journey and about the things you've had to learn. Because you and I came up in generations and that, we didn't talk about our feelings. There wasn't room for that. We didn't talk about the only quote, I'm putting quotes around this, the crazy people went to therapy. So all those things that you've been able to overcome and say, no, I need this. I need this. It's important for me. It's important for my health. I am an empath, and we didn't even know what that was, when we were kids. And I'm a little behind you, but not much different. I was born in the late 60s and grew up in the 70s and 80s. There just wasn't language for that. So just even your ability to see that, continue to be a learner, access those resources you need. And also, I think when you share that with other people, it's like, oh, okay, maybe I need that too. Or maybe there's something I can learn here. Or maybe, so all of those pieces are so important in this journey. And this, one
more thing. You said we grew up at that time. I grew up in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
But as a young kid, and why I say I'm an empath now, because even then, I had feelings that I didn't share, but I always felt bad, when people were picked on. I was 6, 7, 8 years old, and we joined. People were mean to other kids that weren't, quote unquote, normal or behaved differently, but they weren't so different. Yeah, I learned. And I used to, I have a younger brother, so I wanted to change his diaper. I'm 5 years older than he was, so I'm 6 and 7. I wanted to change his diaper. Then when he grew up, I teased the hell out of him, but that's another story.
Siblings, gotta love siblings.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just felt, and I liked, as a kid, I liked kids.
Yeah.
It's weird, younger kids.
Yeah.
I just I wanted to take care of him. I wanted to be their big brother. I was a big brother. I wasn't, but it's weird with siblings.
Yeah.
Because he's a pain in the neck. I was the baby. Now he's the baby of the family. I have 2 older brothers.
Yeah.
So, and there was a lot of that, not meanness, but just sibling stuff that you do, teasing. And my older brother, we call it the commandant, because he was always not beating him, but he was, he was the boss. My father worked a lot, so he would bring down the hammer sometimes. Yeah. But so that's just, I always liked, and then that's why I say I guess the word is empath, because but it's weird because, like you, when you grew up in your generation, and I in mine, I still have voices of what I would have said. It's weird. What I would have said back 50 years ago or something, which would not be so empathetic.
Right. And that stuff stays with you. Because,
but I understand it. Yeah. And I talk to this with my shrink. I say, I have these voices, but I know now those voices go away in reality. Yeah. Most of the time.
And just the conditioning, how that conditioning affects us. It has an effect and stays with us. Yeah, that's so powerful. But I think there's I so appreciate how you were able to access the resources you need. You recognize that, you knew it was important for you in your journey. And I think probably makes it possible for you to do this work now because you can do it from that healthier space. But even within that, my next talking point is confidently setting boundaries. I would say too, you probably have to set some boundaries around it and allow yourself time and space, because it's very emotional work. And so probably allowing yourself ways to like step away. You mentioned, very physically active and just needing the time away from it to refill and be able to go back into these spaces and share this information that's difficult and hard sometimes. So talk to me about that and how you kind of decide that.
Okay. So one thing that I somehow have done I don't even know if I was conscious about it, is that I think I put stuff away in a compartment, I guess. I'm just trying to conceptualize it for people.
Yeah.
There's a thing where I put things away, I guess. All right. And it stays there. And it's weird because after this happened, I'm thinking, okay, got all of my life. I did doing this. And I don't know. I did not know that I have PTSD. I didn't know that.
Wow.
I rarely heard of it until I don't know if they coined this phrase during the Vietnam War.
I think it was after. I mean, I think a lot of people had it, but they didn't have a name for it.
Right. And I knew a couple of guys, and one of them was okay. Another one was not. He was able to go on. And so I somehow do that. And as far as boundaries go, I'm able to kind of step out of that one hat that I'm wearing.
Sure.
And go into another, which is how I start my presentation with the kids. Okay. Talk about different roles.
Sure.
And physically, like you said, I've always played games, sports, always. Shot pool, I don't know, little games, anything. Right. When we were kids, we didn't have play dates because I lived in the city. I lived in a city with, 6-story buildings throughout the whole block. And they were like over thousands of people on one block. And my friends and my brother's friends, everybody knew everybody. And so I grew up in that, it was great.
Yeah. Everybody's just kind of around and available all,
exactly.
all the time. And
if you were late, you had the old ladies looking out the window, just facing the block. Your mother wants you for dinner. Go home. So it was a big part of my life, playing games. And I love to play games, whether it's word games, any kind of games.
Yeah.
Even when I was teaching English, I would play with them.
Yeah.
I would make
it's a great way to teach them without them knowing it's happening.
Right. And that's how I first few days of class, I would just be, stern. Because, those...
You got to set those expectations early.
Right. And then I loosened up and, I guess kids responded. They didn't always pass, but at least they were civil most of the times.
Well, and those games and those things you do are great outlets. They're great. You allow yourself, because you mentioned, one of your characteristics is playful. You allow yourself that room and that space to be playful and experience that part of your life. And I think sometimes when we go through something so difficult, so tragic, that we don't allow ourselves that space, and we still need that. That's an important part of who we are. That's a healthy outlet for us. Was that hard for you to tap back into after this happened, or was that something you knew was important for you in your process?
I knew I had to play
Yeah.
Now, the sport as an adult that I really enjoyed was basketball.
Mm.
And I was lucky to find, we had moved a couple of times from Massachusetts because she went to UMass there, my wife. I went up with her. And when we moved back to New York, because we both got jobs in New York, well, yeah, we did, yeah. But we were like an hour apart from our jobs, one going north, one going south.
Oh, wow.
It was some year.
I bet. That commute. Oh, my goodness.
I coached 3 sports my first year of full-time teaching and taught English.
Wow.
Because I was young, so I could do it.
Sure. Absolutely. Had all the energy.
Yeah. So, even after Zach died, I mean, it took me, I don't know, not long to get back to playing hoops. And we have a group of guys that I played with for years and years. College ball players, a couple of pros, and we would meet at one of the coaches of Nassau Community College. He had the gym. Then there was a athletic director of a high school in Freeport. We had that gym. There were gyms up in all over. Wherever we could find a game. Yeah, it was a Saturday run and a Sunday run. And so it was great, and I also played in the league during the week. So I had an outlet. I played with the kids at school. Yeah. The boys when I was coaching, and I coached girls. But then I played with the boys and the girls. Yeah. Because, gotta make them tough.
Get them ready. Well, what a great outlet for you, though.
Yeah. And swimming. My main thing now is swimming. Because the bones.
It's a little easier on the body than the belly of basketball.
Too many operations. Too many. I have no knee. One knee is gone. One hip is halfway gone.
Oh boy.
And my back and this, but but it's not just the sport. It's getting older too. Yes. So I calm down. I don't want to feel bad every time I do something. Exactly. I walk, now I walk much more than I did. Yeah. And it was great. It's really good for me. And I read, I like to read. I always did. Yeah. I'm a nerd, but no. I never considered myself a nerd. My wife is a nerd. My daughter is a nerd. They are so smart. It is, I don't know, you could have that many brain cells and plasticity in the brain to be them. They are just, it's not because I love them. It's just, they're just freaking smart.
Yeah, just off the chart smart. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, those are the things that keep me going. Yeah. And of course, I love movies. I mean, I taught film study in high school for several years. Okay. And so I liked, but now, and even now, I will still take the time to watch a movie. I'm really busy now. I wasn't busy because I was waiting for the okays from the state, from the IRS, and it was just, it was like
all the red tape
on the phone anymore. I just, it's hard to get used to that when you're an OG,
Yeah, so, absolutely, absolutely.
The other thing is that, I really, before I speak, I really have to think about what's going on now with the kids and in society. Like I said, I have that OG voice. Yeah. That would probably say hurtful things. Sure. But I have my current voice. Yeah. Let's say my educated voice. Yeah. Which understands the problems a lot of young people are going through, even middle-aged, older people, sexual orientation, BIPOC populations, which I'm finding it hard to get people to respond. I'm an old white dude, and why would they want to tell me their story? So I've been trying.
And just trying to create those safe spaces, and I think it just takes people time to trust and know that this is a safe place for you to land. And we have some commonalities here that if we work together, we can do this. but that can be a tough nut to crack.
That's one of my goals, is to get more people of color.
Yeah.
Here.
And just and create that trust and create these partnerships and these collaborations that we need, and get into these spaces to have these conversations, which really goes nicely into, you really show up living and believing unapologetically. Like, you are so tied and committed to this mission and bringing other people along with you on it. What are some of the roadblocks you're running into, and what helps keep you motivated to continue to show up in this way?
Okay. So, as I said, I just started doing this last spring. I started a little before the spring. Yeah, the year before the spring.
Yeah.
Put everything together, figure out what to do, where to go, and so far, the only roadblocks was bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah.
And then I think with me doing certain things like getting on that Nassau-Boshi site, which educators look at.
Sure.
Asking people if they know anybody. Like, I have a cousin who is now the secretary of my organization. She's been great, calling favors in, and I will ask anybody anything. PTAs, I would like to get them involved.
Sure.
So I really haven't done that big outreach yet, which I am going to do.
Sure.
Now that everything
is in place.
So
Absolutely.
that should happen in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. That's awesome.
And also, like you said, the roadblock, which is obvious, we just talked about, is getting all kinds of people.
Yes. Yeah.
No matter sexual orientation, color of your skin, religion.
Yeah.
I'll talk to anyone if they'll talk to me.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to that point that we talked about earlier. This doesn't have a favorite demographic. This hits everybody, all walks of life, every economic level. This is something that doesn't pick a favorite. A favorite is wherever it can glom onto as this disease. And so I think too, having those, making that, okay, there's a community here. How can we do this together? This is affecting all of us in some way.
That's why I want to have all people be, they don't know me, but even if they just listened,
sure,
maybe they would feel more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And also too, when you go into schools, you want to be able to go into schools with a variety of people. So those kids are also being able to see somebody that looks like them, has a similar experience to them, because different people, you have the great gift of being a teacher. So you're a natural connector to kids, but it can still be really helpful to have more stories, more voices, because then you can get more into more spaces, into more places. So that's an important factor too. And really, I think this goes nicely into, your why behind this is so powerful. It's like, I don't want anyone else to die. That is a really powerful, informed why and value, and so much power in that. And I know that there's so many other people that are in that place, but also like just removing, living out of your own expectations of just being like, this is what I expect. And this is what I believe we can do. And I want you to come along with me in it. When it comes to on the education side, what are their expectations versus what your expectations, and what are you able to, so talk to me about that, because that can be something to navigate too, is like, are they willing to let you come in and say what needs to be said? Because sometimes we can run into people like, oh, we don't want to talk about that here.
Yeah. In my limited experience doing this, hopefully it'll be unlimited.
Yes.
What I talk about in the beginning is just getting to know me, in a sense. 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
And of course, I like to joke around, so that's what I do.
Yeah.
And then I ask them, anybody know what SUD means? SUD? know, which I find terrible.
Yeah.
Because they should know.
Sure.
And, what I put out in the video, there's a video, which is I take from the podcast, from the interviews. I put those people on. And so they can see people weeping, talking about how they found their loved ones, just dead for 2 days or something. That's one example.
Yeah.
And the feedback I got from this, I have a long video and then I have a short one for class periods, and I can make it any length.
Sure.
But to me, the long video is the one that I was told by the people who watched, the kids were riveted. Because at the end of the day,
wow,
a bunch of 9th grade or 10th graders,
oh
at the
boy,
end of the day, and they sat there riveted.
Wow.
Which was, to me, validation.
Absolutely.
And of course, the timing got messed up with the after part, where I just had to kind of just quickly rush through my story. And so that was a demerit, so to speak. And I felt rushed because they didn't have the time that I thought I would get.
Yeah.
But you know what? As long as they saw the kids were looking at it, some kids were dozing off, which is normal.
Sure.
Well, making jokes, which is usual for kids.
Yeah, it can be kind of a coping mechanism sometimes when something's uncomfortable.
Right. So, and so far, we'll see what happens if I get into a lot of schools. But I got good feedback the last time I went. Good. So that, to me, that's why I want feedback.
Right. So you can build it and make the improvements where they need to make and the adjustments. Absolutely.
Specific things that they wanted me to talk about. And I said, sure. I mean, just look, I just started this thing. I don't,
sure.
You tell me what you want me to stress, and I will.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of information.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Like 20% of it.
Yes. And
I have good sites where I go.
Well, and that's important too, is just giving people that information so they can take that time and put the time into themselves. But I want to go back to something because you hit on something, and I think there's probably a lot of people in our audience. Tell people what SUD is. Tell people what it means. Tell people all the things that go with that.
Okay. SUD is a disease at this medical coding. The doctors decide this is a disease. Well, they say now substance use disorder is a disease, which includes opioid use disorder, and people don't know about this, cannabis use disorder.
Oh, wow.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Nobody knows about that.
No.
And it's basically for adolescents. The female-born people, their brains mature at about 21 years of age. It's just a number they have, through all their research.
Sure.
The typical male-born person is 25. Wow. So their brain that's it. That's the highest your brain is going to get in terms of, its maturity. Yeah. Because look at us. It's downhill to the after, right?
Absolutely. We're hanging on.
Right. And males, and to me, it should be the other way around because girls are smarter. Women are smarter.
Well, isn't it so interesting, though, that it's a 4-year difference? That's a big difference.
And of course, these are studies and, it's with a lot of information.
Right.
But I don't question it because I think it sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, women just are more mature than men. Let's just face it. Yeah. They get there faster.
They do. And there's a science and a lot of social studies that back that up.
That's why CUD, cannabis use disorder, not many people are aware of that. Because it hits the kids. It's mostly with adolescents. Yeah. 11 years old, 12. You got to look at these numbers and know And so that one thing, I just learned about that a couple of months ago.
Wow.
Through one of these academic research areas that I follow.
Yeah.
And I get information all the time from them. And so that even made me more, not committed, but more intense about talking about the weed, as we used to call it.
Well, yeah, and especially with the legality of it now. I mean, people can get it differently in different ways than they were able to get it before. And just needing the information of what this does to your body, like anything, you need to understand what this does to your body. And
I think I sent you, I may have sent you this symptoms.
Yes.
If you, and this is something I would like to present to PTAs.
Yeah.
So I'm actually working on that to get into some schools.
Because the parents need to know this too. They need to know the signs to look for. And all these, don't worry, this is all going to be on our website, guys. So parents, grandparents, sisters, moms, everybody, go there, take a look at it, be aware, be informed, be educated, be empowered with this information.
They can contact me if they like.
Absolutely. All that information is going to be there because this is how we catch these things. This is how we have these discussions. This is how we empower our kids and ourselves with the information. And I think we also have to be like, when they're 10 years old, it's okay to start talking to them about this stuff. So many times we get to these conversations too late or they're already down a road. But one thing I want to come back to with this SUD, with this classification as a disease, are more people prone to others? Because we see in the opioid crisis, I'll use that for an example, we see that happening across the board with people that get addicted to pain medicines, to heroin, to whatever the case may be. And it hits a stratosphere of populations in different ways, different ages, from different scenarios. Are there people that are more prone than others?
Okay, so the main determinants that if you use a substance, the biggest determinant is genetic predisposition.
Oh, wow.
But you don't know this.
Right.
Now, for example, just to show you the research that's being done, for the BRCA gene, 5 to 10%, it'll do the job.
Okay.
For this 50%, can you imagine? That's BRCA. For genetic disposition, it's 50% related. So
wow,
if you don't understand that,
right,
you'll say, if you don't know that, you'll say, oh, I can do this.
Sure.
Nobody in my family is that. Has that kind of personality. You don't know. That's the thing. And you can never know.
Right.
So you want
until it's too late sometimes. You don't know what the questions to ask.
Taking a pill you think is good, but it's laced with fentanyl or some new stuff that they're coming out with, which that's a whole other story.
Sure.
But I can give you information on that too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that's going on that is changing the drug alteration industry, let's say. The adulterants that are added to the drugs that kill people.
Wow.
And they're getting better and better at it, these chemists. So that's why I am like, if I had hair, it would be on fire now to warn everybody.
Sure. Yes. And be aware and ask questions. Ask your doctors, whether ask your doctors. Don't be afraid to ask those questions.
Right. And I say, it's not my opinion at all.
Right. This is data.
I don't give you opinions. I have my opinions, but I keep them to myself.
Sure.
Again, the other thing that you talk about determining is childhood trauma. But those two, if you have any of those two, not what's the word?
Traits or characteristics. Yeah.
Yeah, characteristics. The one you won't know about But the trauma we know about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of stuff, now trauma, PTSD is because they're finally addressing it.
Yeah.
But not enough. There are better ways to address it.
Well, yeah. And too many times these kids are making decisions to ease the pain of the trauma, and they're going down these roads, and this is how they end up there. But it's not just that. There's other places too. It's asking your doctors about medications they're putting you on or your loved ones on. I mean, knowing what's in, what are you putting in your body? What are the risks? And don't be afraid to be aggressive with that. You have a right to know that. And knowing the signs to watch for. This is all to empower you and to give you information. I want to go back to the kids for a minute. Talk to me about the signs that people can watch for in their kids. What should they expect?
Okay. Well, you know what? I want to make sure I give you the correct information.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
Let me go into my computer and find it. Because I think I don't know if I might have sent it to you, but let me just make sure. It's a very short thing here. Okay, here we go. Okay. It's brain health. Okay? So it's affected by distractibility, loneliness, negative self-talk, i.e. depression, and lack of meaning and or purpose in life. Now, for kids, it's hard to go with the last one, but there's other things. Yeah, and a healthy brain life, this is brain health, awareness, connection, insight, and purpose, which is the antidotes to the four things I just said before. Sure. And SUD contributes to all those, to that brain health. Right. That contribute to the brain health, to the
detriment of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And do the signs differ between kids and adults, or are they going to show up similarly?
I think similarly, but I have here. Here's the thing. How do you know if you have CUD, which is,
cannabis
use? Taking more of there's loss of control. You take more that you usually used to do. You spend a great deal of time obtaining or using it, having an uncontrollable urge or craving, trying to stop or cut back and not being able to. And then there are interpersonal consequences. You forego social activities, recreational activities.
Sure.
You have a lot of interpersonal conflicts as a result of your use of cannabis. Yeah. And you fail to fulfill your obligations at home or at school or work or as a result of the use. Yeah. And then there's risky use. Yeah. You put yourself in a dangerous situation as a result of obtaining or using cannabis, just like people who are addicted to heroin do the same thing. Sure. And you continue to use despite the physical and psychological effects. Eventually, you develop tolerance, and you need more and more of the drug for the same effect. Then when you stop, you have withdrawal, even from cannabis. Wow. So it's a big mess that you get involved in, but you're a kid and you don't know. And this is the information that might help the kid himself. Yeah. Help the parents. Yeah. And that's all I'm doing.
Yeah. And just have that, and just know what it is you're getting into before you get into it. Because, there's, even for those out there that argue the medicinal purposes with cannabis, which there certainly can be, we all know that too much of anything is bad. And there's always that danger line of crossing over into, even if you're on pain medications after a surgery or anything like that, we know too much of a good thing or good quote unquote thing is bad. And these are
these operations, I know.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure that really changes the way you look at that and the questions you ask and being informed about those things, just given your experience with that. But I think, it's just being educated, having that empowerment. Thank you for explaining that and going into that. And just, again, information and education is empowering, and it is a good thing.
Here's my belief. It's the only way we're going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
Of addiction.
Yeah.
CUD, OUD, amphetamines, cocaine. Well, I don't think one of them, you don't really get addicted to it.
Okay.
Crack cocaine is different than cocaine that you snort.
Yeah.
Much different. So
yeah.
When I say cocaine, I should have said crack cocaine.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Difference. Yeah. But it's just having that information, knowing and understanding what it is you're getting into. And I think it's important for kids to have this information, to know you are not invincible. You are, and I think sometimes, or if you need help, if you're experiencing this depression that can come up at any time, especially as adolescents going through so many changes, or as young adults or parents, or you're going through a divorce, whatever it is, whatever stage you're in, know the signs, and know that there's other resources and other things for you to turn to for help and support. And there's people out there that want to help you with that. And that this doesn't have to be the road you go down, and being informed about that, because so many times you get down that road and you're addicted, and then it's very difficult to get out of. And you all too well to painfully know.
Yeah. In fact, you go through, it usually takes, it's on average, that's what the data says, 4 to 5 relapses when you're addicted to opiates.
Wow.
If you're lucky enough
to survive,
to go through 4 to 5 relapses. People have gone through 10 relapse stories that I've gotten.
Wow.
And yet they made it, some, but not many. And it's just, and it's like you said, what else can you do? Well, I think everyone should see a psychologist.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It could be once every 3 weeks, every month, just to check in, because you got crazy stuff in your head.
Yeah.
That you should really talk to someone about.
Yeah.
I don't mean crazy, a psychological condition, but stuff going on in your brain.
Right.
Man, why am I thinking this? Or who knows? So it's good sometimes kind of like to check in with someone who understands.
Yeah. And can help you and give you tools and help you work through it. Whatever that thing is, that trigger that's coming up, let's get to the root of that. Let's heal that. Let's talk about it and have that resources. And because these other avenues that so many times people will turn to when they're feeling like they're feeling helpless or feeling like they need some relief, it's a dangerous, catastrophic road to go down. It's just a dangerous, catastrophic road. And we don't want that to be the case anymore. And it's a crisis in our country. And it is a crisis.
If you go back when we were growing up, there was this image of a person who had opioid use disorder as not a person. It was a lowlife.
Yeah.
It was usually a person of color. But even back then, there were white people, yellow people, whatever color you were. There were people going through this, but the typical stereotype that I grew up with was, it just happens to them.
Yeah.
Not us.
Yeah.
That's why there's a good case for reparations. But that's my opinion. But I'm not going there.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah.
It's just, it's, I can't imagine being a person back in the day who was using heroin. You were looked at, and even no matter what color you were, you were still looked at as a lowlife.
Yeah.
And you're gonna want to rob people, but they didn't get it. It was a brain disorder.
Yeah. So, and all this fear that went around it, and the lack of help, lack of resources, lack of empathy, being treated as less than human. I mean, which just contributes to how, the path you're on already. You're already feeling terrible about yourself. That doesn't do it. I mean, it just piles on. It just piles on.
Support the prison system. So,
Yeah. Oh, I know. That's a whole other.
All about the money. All about the Benjamins.
It is. It's about the many, the power. I have it. This might be. I'll be curious to hear your answer on this, and this might not be a road you want to go down, or it might not be one you know the answer to for sure. But talk to me about the pharmaceutical companies' place in all of this.
Look. They. I can understand why people have these conspiracies theories, especially with COVID and all that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's here. You got to deal with it. Okay.
Right.
Now, pharmaceutical companies, they're companies. They want to make money.
Yeah.
We get it. Okay. But they also, in many instances, or else there wouldn't be too many people around, keep people going.
Yeah.
The problem is, and I don't know if I should say this, but if you made these companies nonprofits, they still need money to do research. I get that. But you could have a government corporate kind of melding of things.
Yeah.
And look, let's face it, the government paid them a lot of money to do all this research to get the COVID vaccine, whether you believe it or not.
Sure.
That's your business.
Yeah.
Right? But my wife's a biologist.
Yeah.
And I wasn't keen on getting the shot. Because I don't know, I think I don't want to give myself the evil eye here, but I really have gotten a cold or a flu and I can't remember when. Mm-hmm. I cannot remember. Mm-hmm. And it's part of my toolkit is to eat healthily.
Yeah.
And not many people can afford to eat healthily.
That's another problem. Yeah.
That's another problem. So, look, they're there. Sometimes they're evil. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
And look, you have a lot of smart people doing this. Mm-hmm. These people that become biochemists. And you have to respect knowledge.
Yeah.
Whatever the purpose of the knowledge is, it could be for good. It could be for evil.
Yeah.
Like the Sacklers.
Yeah. Yes.
But one of these sites I go to, it said that with this new stuff coming out, they call it novel psychoactive substances. Mm. Okay? With this stuff they're coming out, it's like the Sacklers were playing with a kid toy.
Oh, wow.
That's how, but people, you got to read, you got to learn.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing since I started.
Yeah.
This whatever it is.
Well, it is. It's an empowerment. It's an education. It is a tool for people to have. And so thank you for speaking. I really appreciate your input on that, because I think it's just part of this empowering, knowing what it is, being aware, being like, again, it goes back to too much of any of a good thing becomes a bad thing. And, the same thing goes with just understand what it is you're putting into your body and don't be afraid to ask the questions about it and make sure that you're getting, I think we have to get rid of this idea that they're not old enough to talk to about this yet. And there's certainly some of those things that exist in the world, but we're talking about this with our 11 and 12-year-olds. And, we got to be realistic about when they're hearing about and seeing this stuff, and they know about it. And where do you want them to learn the truth about it?
The street. That's where I learned.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And so if you don't think they're going to hear about it or learn about it outside of your purview, you haven't been paying attention for the last, however many years. And so let's get this information in their hands and let's give it to them and empower them with it. And at all levels. And parents, have these conversations with your kids. Teachers, have these conversations with your students. PTAs, bring these people in here. Tell these stories. Tell me these stories. You do not want to go through these experiences of what Harris and his family have gone through. You don't want to do that. What a tragic way for his son's life to end. It doesn't have to be this way, but we don't get there without being educated and empowered with the right information. accepting the layered aspects of ourselves. And that's all those parts of our life that happen that we don't always love. And so talk to me about your layers journey and how that's affected your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your wife and your daughter as you've walked through this.
Well, I think I hit on some of those things while we were talking.
Yeah.
And part of it is weird because, like I said, these voices in my head, right, that from the old days.
Yeah.
That's
things that we were raised with.
I actually didn't realize it until the last, 10 years that there was this OG guy in there.
Yeah.
Well, this younger guy who used to think a certain way.
Sure.
And until I would say, look, when I learned that I was in love with my wife, it was almost like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. And we both of us came from the same generation, and like it's kind of like we kind of knew without talking sometimes, which may not have been the best thing to do. At the time. It seemed okay because she was doing her research after we got married, and I was trying to take these odd jobs at the university, taking the dishes away when the kids were done. And I mean, we lived in a community that was really great community. It was federally subsidized housing for a lot of the grad students and, doctorate students.
Oh, wow.
And
nice.
People who just lived there. It was multi-generational. There were people with families. There were people like Gail and myself who were just, who were there.
Yeah.
And it was just a great place to be. So we really were just into what we were into. And she was always busy. She would go away to look for parasites in Honduras or something. I forget where they went. She went a lot of trips to symposiums, and it was kind of like we were running on parallel,
tracks.
Things. But we were home. We just did what we did. It was like, I looked at my parents. I don't think I ever heard them say out loud to each other, "I love you," except, when it's a birthday, I love you. And it's like you just we weren't reared that way.
Yeah.
Sharing. We just knew, look, I love you, I married you, and that's it. Sure, there were rocky times before all this happened with the kids, with Zach, and we just were partners in parenting. I had a sabbatical, I had a paternity leave when my firstborn was born, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I took care of her, and then for the second one, Zach, we said, okay, I can't do this because I got to work. Yeah. Well, that was good. And I guess, that helped me. I guess it helped me. I supercharged my caring about people, caring about my kids, of course, so much.
Sure.
And, helping raise a young girl, living with three brothers. It wasn't easy figuring out.
Yeah.
But my daughter was smarter than I was when she was 5 years old. So it didn't matter. I'm the dummy of the family. Even Zach was smart, but he couldn't be bothered with school. But that was okay. But he read a lot. I read some of the things he asked me to read, the books, and I said, wow, he was really out there with his political opinions. He actually made his own movie.
Oh, wow.
Which was a takeoff on Robert Louis Stevenson's. And you can title it "Eat the Rich."
Oh,
it was insane. You know what I mean? Of himself giving this diatribe about how to solve hunger.
Oh, wow.
He said, you take the little kids and make them food for the adults. This is what this guy wrote back then.
Yeah.
So it was just, he was wacky. We call him Wacky Zacky. So where did I got off tangent here? And then, you talk about, in the layers that I keep finding in myself. I just became more, without knowing that was who I was from a child.
Sure.
Feeling about other people and not wanting to make them feel bad.
Yeah.
Trying to make them feel happy by joking around. Well, I guess that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And my father was like that too. He was a funny guy and he used to crack jokes. And so that's how you cope with some difficult situations. Like kids will, like you said before, kids will laugh when, or not pay attention when you're talking about these things.
Yeah.
It's like a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
So I just keep, it's weird that it came pretty much slowly at first, these different layers that I discovered about myself. Mm-hmm. But after having kids, I looked at them as little people and saying, how can I make things, make them into grown-ups by being an example. Mm-hmm. Gail and I are both hard workers. I mean, coaching, teaching.
Yeah.
I worked at a camp so the kids could go for free because we couldn't afford camp.
Sure.
I was a counselor all summer, so I didn't get my summers off like everybody else. The other teachers, a lot of them had to work because they weren't paying us that well.
Yeah.
A little better now, but relatively speaking, it's not great for a lot of teachers in the country. No. Especially in certain states, which I will not mention.
I'm with you.
And you know what? And also by really having discussions with my wife, because she too is of that generation.
Yeah.
We didn't share.
Yeah.
And it just, as you look, I'm glad to see that the young people now, I think they're a little bit ahead of where we were at the same age.
I agree.
It's definitely a good thing that they are, not all of them, but they're talking about how they feel, their weaknesses, their fears, not just with their parents, with their friends, with their teachers, with their, social workers in school, I think.
Yeah.
And that's a good direction I see education going in. And our country is to, admit and have these role models like basketball players saying, hey, I was depressed. And I mean, that's good medicine.
It is.
Without a drug.
Yes, exactly. And those are
drug-free medication.
It is. And it's those kinds of those resources, those conversations, it's safe to talk about that here, that we can minimize the use of these other things that people are so many times drawn to because they don't feel like they can talk about these things. And, and I think that we're starting to see, I know I've got 3 daughters in their 20s and they're making decisions about their lives and their jobs based on the quality of life they want. Not, is this a good job that will pay me enough money? It's a more well-rounded decision, which leads to a more whole life experience rather than these jobs that you may end up, you're making great money, but you're miserable,
It's funny that you mentioned that because at one point, I had a chance to go to a school district, which was probably like a 20 to 30% boost in my salary. Mm-hmm. But it was in Westchester, which was north of where I lived.
Yeah, that's a hike from.
A while
Yeah.
Yeah, getting off of Throgs Neck Bridge, forget it.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Gail's sister had to do this every day because she was living on the island and she had a job in the Bronx, Northern Bronx, Co-op City.
Wow.
And it was...
That's a nightmare
So I
commute.
said, forget about the money.
Yeah.
Forget it. And if I coached too, I'd never be home. And my kids are here.
Yeah.
So it worked out, even though I coached, and I was, didn't have to go far. You go on the bus with the kids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I said, no, it's not worth it. It would probably be debilitating for myself.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be present. So
yeah.
So I didn't make as much money.
Yeah.
I knew as a teacher.
Yeah, no kidding. You understand that intuitively when you go into that. It's not like you're taking an accounting job or, coming out of med school or, those kinds of things. I mean, you understand that, but it also speaks to your heart in that, and being a teacher and being a learner. This goes so naturally with who you are. I want to touch on one last thing as part of this layers piece before we come to a close and with this great conversation. But talk to me and maybe talk to parents and loved ones about navigating the sometimes the stigma of shame and blame and guilt that can come from this journey. Because again, this hits all demographics. You can be the best, most present. You've just talked about all the ways you and your wife made choices to be present for your children. And sometimes this thing gets our kids anyway. And there is nothing, and you have to be able to get okay with the fact that you did the best you could, and there's no finger pointing. So talk to me about that, because I think that is a real struggle that exists.
Well, yeah. So the first thing a parent does, most parents, same with us, what did we do?
Yeah.
How did we fail? How did we fail our child?
Yeah.
What did we do? What happened here? And that takes a while. And, it comes back around every now and then.
Sure.
When you're in a bad place for whatever reason. But through therapy, talking about it.
Sure.
And more importantly, learning that it wasn't our fault.
Yeah.
We even got this to one of Gail's colleagues who's a social worker, or she taught social work.
Yeah.
She got the guy, the psychiatrist in Nassau County, who kind of was like an expert back in the day about addiction.
Okay.
And he said, we talked about it, Zach and I. Zach went to see him a couple of times. The best thing to do is to leave, go somewhere else, get a job, whatever. And then he did. It was going okay for a while. And then he had landed a job after being a temp guy. And I think that I learned after that he was an anxious kid, but I didn't realize it.
Sure.
I don't think it was debilitating, but in his mind it might have been.
Absolutely.
And I was, okay, this guy said, let him go up there. I didn't know anything.
Right.
Now, of course, with time, hopefully knowledge comes, and it does.
Yeah.
I would have done things differently, of course, but that ship has sailed.
It is. And you did the best with what you had. I mean, again, it goes back to those resources that we didn't have. You can only work with what you've got.
And I stopped beating myself up.
Yeah.
Because I beat myself up a lot.
I'm sure.
And that explains a lot of the things about me now.
Yeah.
So that, that's why just say KNOW.
Yes.
Is my theme song.
Absolutely. And that's a great way to go into as we wrap it up, it's that knowledge. It's that taking that information and empowering and giving and helping it be accessible to people so that they have those resources that they didn't know were there before. And that is, and sometimes also knowing we do the best we can. And just sometimes that is all we can do. And
you can't beat yourself up.
No, you cannot. You cannot do that to yourself. You cannot do that to yourself. Thank you for sharing that. I know that there's somebody out there that needs to hear that is probably that is struggling and needs to know that there's people out there that understand. There's resources. Give yourself grace. Give yourself love, and know that you did the best you can, and allow yourself to heal and allow yourself to mourn. And make space for all of those things. But therapy, I think, is important in just having those tools that you need. And what this work you're doing is so important. It's so powerful. I'm so thankful for your time today. As we wrap up, talk to me about
one more thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The other thing is, which I find hard to do, but I'm trying, is have gratitude. And people say, how do you have gratitude? I mean, I said it to myself. How do you have gratitude? Your son's dead.
Yeah.
Well, I did a good thing when he was little and growing up. I took hours and hours and hours of video. And so when I started making that movie, it was about 30 minutes of people talking about Zach and clips that I had. And I would laugh and cry. And I did that for years. I watched the videos. My wife could not. So there are different ways to mourn.
Yeah, exactly. It goes back to that. It's just knowing that there's different ways and respecting and finding that way that works for you. But also knowing that maybe it's not going to work the same for your partner or your loved one.
Exactly.
And in respecting that, as well. Thank you so much for that. That's really powerful. And being thankful for that. What a treasure that is for you now to have those things. You just never know what those things are going to mean, and taking that time. It's so powerful. So powerful. Thank you for that. Name 5 activities that nourish you.
Swimming, buying and eating clean food, mostly organic.
Yeah.
Working with young folk. Doing my advocacy.
Yeah.
And sometimes it isn't.
Yeah.
And being with extended family.
Okay. All right. And 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
I want to feel accomplished. I want to feel peace. I want to feel that I'm making a difference. And I may never know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to feel painless. And I just want to feel grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I have no doubt you're making a difference. I have no doubt at all. What you're doing is important. It's powerful. The resources that you've already put out there, the resources that we're going to have access to on our website via all of the things that you've shared today and more. Harris Insler, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your authenticity.
Harris Lee Insler. I forgot.
Harris Lee Insler. All right. All right. And thank you for that. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your dedication to this important work, for your spirit in which you do it with. I appreciate you so much. And I want to thank you for having me on and maybe getting more voices to hear. Yes. Not just on the West Coast, but on the East Coast too. Yeah. Well, this podcast goes worldwide, so hopefully we can reach a lot of different people in a lot of different places. Podcast audience, if this is something that really struck a chord with you today, go to those resources, that resources page, get that help you need, become an advocate, be a voice, ask the questions. No, just say KNOW. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time this week. Audience, take good care of yourselves. Empower yourselves with knowledge. Hug your loved ones. Be grateful and have a great week.